My name is Mike Fisher. I always appreciate the Mr. Fisher. Makes me feel special.
You guys out here are experiencing more of a boom.
Commercial space has had a huge change. There's a lot of chaos going on down in Minneapolis, and people don't want to be down there. So folks are coming out to suburbia and see all these big brokers and other retailers and management companies are offering huge TI incentives for people to come and set up shop in their buildings.
Can you tell me what your feel in the market is? Not kind of what the news tells us.
Since COVID, office has changed, the whole office retail. So prices have gone up.
Landlord's perspective, like what's a perfect tenant?
Really no such thing. It's really personality based.
What plays a role in a property that rents quickly?
Location goes into everything with real estate, right? But also price point.
As I always say on the phone, Mr. Fisher, thank you for joining us to do this. I really appreciate it. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what is it that you do?
Yeah. So again, my name is Mike Fisher. I always appreciate the Mr. Fisher. Makes me feel special.
Of course.
I'm a commercial realtor and property manager with Premier Commercial Properties. So I help people find, sell, lease, and manage commercial real estate. That's office, retail, industrial in the North Metro of Minnesota.
Okay. So you basically would like to just stick more around Anoka County or further into other counties too, or just?
Yeah, so our area that we do 98% of our deals in is essentially from Elk River to Forest Lake, down to Oakdale to Wayzata, back up. So that's our square, which is mainly Anoka, Ramsey, Hennepin County, a little bit in Sherburne.
Awesome. So Mike, right now that what's happening kind of like in all the real estate, it seems to be a little weird and not predictable. It's nothing what we're used to. Can you tell me what your feel on the market is? Not kind of what the news tells us or what we see, what they want us to know, I guess.
Yeah, based on whatever the government's telling you, right?
Pretty much. I wasn't going to use that term.
Oh, that's fine. I've got no problem using it. The Minneapolis and surrounding market's been kind of fluid over the last 5 years, right? So since COVID, office has changed. The whole office, retail, commercial space has had a huge change.
Yep.
So prices have gone up. Different sectors are doing well versus others. And given today's just climate of activity in Minneapolis is accounting for a lot of people vacating and leaving.
Okay.
So you got a couple factors that have kind of driven into that. One, COVID, right? That sent a lot of people working from home. A lot of companies found that they can operate more efficiently, effectively by sending people home, right?
Okay.
So you got people working from home. So these big companies that don't need 10,000 square feet are shrinking to a lesser square footage.
Right.
So therefore they're reducing their overhead costs of leasing and getting out there to more satellite offices or smaller square footages so that they can have team meetings where guys come in, meet on site if needed. Otherwise, a lot of it's being done virtually. So the office shift has changed from people looking for thousands of square feet to less.
Right. So is it safe to say that the office space is now kind of dead, or is it in transformation of what's what the market is asking for?
So the office market, I wouldn't say is dead. There's certainly deals and money to be made into it. It's just not going to be downtown. Really, it's getting into the outer edges. So the North Metro and the surrounding area outside the city is seeing vacancies get filled, while in the downtown and the heart of Minneapolis and St. Paul, you're seeing vacancies come up. More folks are trying to sublease out their spaces, sublease out their suites, while areas like Blaine and North Metro are seeing vacancies getting filled.
Okay.
And the reason for that is, again, unfortunately, there's a lot of crime going on. There's a lot of chaos going on down in Minneapolis, and people don't want to be down there.
Yeah.
So folks are coming out to suburbia and setting up in the vacancies out here, which has been good for the surrounding economy.
Right. So the impact basically that we are that's happening on that is mainly in the Twin Cities, downtowns, Minneapolis and St. Paul, versus more of the exteriors. You guys out here are experiencing more of a boom in office, I would say, than in any other space.
Correct. I would say I wouldn't call it exactly a boom, but rates have increased, right?
Supply and demand.
Correct. As you get more demand outside, right?
Mhm.
Again, prices go up. While that supply becomes more available in Minneapolis, prices are dropping, right? Which
Right.
is why you can see all these big brokers and other retailers and management companies are offering huge TI incentives for people to come and set up shop in their buildings.
Right.
So, out here we're seeing, prices increase because of, again, supply demand.
I was just about to say, and I don't know if that even, if we didn't almost answer that, what plays a role in a property that rents quickly and the one that stays vacant for a longer time. But you kind of mentioned, a little bit of TI that has to do and just the desire of the area of what's happening around it.
Correct. I mean, again, location goes into everything with real estate, right? But also price point. And most offices, when you walk into it, it's not going to be set up the way that the tenant wants it, right?
Right. Yeah.
Which is why SMC Construction is out there, right?
We're here to help.
So most of the time when someone comes in looking at a space, it's not going to fit what they want, right?
Yeah.
That's paint, carpet, something to be modified and changed, right? Very rarely is there no TIs being done in some way like that.
Right.
So it's not like thousands of square feet is getting leased up, right? We're seeing demand on smaller stuff, call it 5,000 square feet or less on the office side, right? It's not these big 10,000 square foot floors that you're seeing being done.
Yeah.
It's smaller. And, stuff that is 5,000 square feet or bigger, right? Roughly, you're seeing those sit on the market longer. And you can throw TIs, you can throw incentives at it, but the demand for that size is not exactly there so much
anymore. Yeah.
Which is why you'll see some buildings that are leasing the same space for 5 years.
Right.
No one's come into it.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen many of those, and they're, bigger buildings that just, it seems like, whenever you drive by, there's nobody on a parking lot. And I'm like, man, it hurts just to keep that, heated and cooled and maintained when you have no tenants.
Yep. And what a lot of landlords are being forced to do is now look at demising them, right? How do I take this 6, 7, or 8,000 or whatever it is and demise it down into something that's more attractive?
Right.
That 1 to 2,000 or maybe even up to 3, right? But there is demand for those smaller sizes. So landlords now have to get creative by demising the spaces out to fit those needs.
Makes sense. Yeah. It doesn't, the ones that needed that one particular client that would take the whole building, now you're going to have 10 of them or whatever.
Correct.
So, okay. What would you say the biggest mistakes that business owners make when they sign leases? What do you see out there because you do a lot of those?
And this may sound very common sense, but literally reading the lease. You'd be surprised how many times someone gets the lease,
seriously, just
signs it, doesn't read it. And, then a couple months down the road, they're calling, hey, so who repairs this? Well, did you not read that maintenance section? Yeah. Oh, no. Well, per that lease agreement, you're responsible for whatever that repair is. Right?
Wow.
And then it goes into, oh, I guess I didn't realize that. Well, again, you should have read it.
I can see kind of like how, especially if they're newer business owners that haven't rented before and this is their first commercial lease, they're treating it like the residential lease. Like, oh, if something breaks down, I call my landlord.
Yeah, and a lot of people think coming from a residential background or even leasing their apartment, right? Well, if the furnace breaks or this is clogged, the landlord takes care of it.
Right.
Well, no, every building, office, retail, industrial is done differently.
Right.
And the leases call out who's responsible for what. And in commercial, I mean, it's the contract, right? Just like when you get a mortgage or insurance, right? It states who's paying for what in case something happens.
Man. So the rude awakening to a lot of new business owners, huh?
It is a rude awakening. Yes, that it's read what you're signing, right? But, apart from that, it's also knowing your size, right? And a lot of people will look at something and be like, oh, okay, this will work for a little bit, right? I've got a little extra space. Well, that space, you find most people will fill it full.
Right.
I'm sure just like at the house with the wife, right? If there's an empty room, oh, she's filling up with something, or if she's not filling it, you are, right?
Yeah, it's either or it's like, kids might be.
Exactly. Kind of like looking at the space and projecting, right? And having some reasonable projections and knowing what you're getting into, right? So for a business owner, my biggest takeaway from this for them would be, one, know your business and know your projections and use reasonable projections, right?
Right.
If a space is slightly too big, it's probably going to be okay for you.
Right.
As long as it's not an extra like 2,000 square feet that really ends up being dead space.
Right.
Some of these perfect things, as an example for dead spaces, if you go into like the Modern Sportsman, right?
Yep.
You walk around, there's a lot of empty floor space.
Yep.
You'll see like, well, is this square footage even actually being used the right way? Right. And again, the Modern Sportsman
for it, but
correct. The Modern Sportsman's, plan might be that, right?
Yeah.
We don't know.
Right.
But if you are a business owner going in, looking at your square footage, how is all of this going to be used effectively and efficiently? Because you're paying for it, whether you realize it or not.
Yeah. Or use it or not.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. That is crazy. I did not expect that to be an answer, to be like read the lease, but yet how simple, it's
very basic. And I can't tell you how many times that happens where I bring them the lease and they're like, all right, I'll just sign. I'm like, well, you should read it first.
Yeah.
Understand what you're getting into here. Because again, this is kind of like you getting married all over again, right?
Yep.
You're in a
for
deal here with this guy.
Be paying it. Yep.
And whether they realize it or not, I think it's that excitement, right? Like,
right.
I've got that dream. I'm getting this going.
Right.
And, this is that first step, right? But it's a very crucial step to understand what contract you're getting into.
Yeah, that's so true. And like you say, I also feel like a lot of people get, with some of the friends and people that we would go, look at the buildings, but they get so excited and they trip over the excitement, just to find a space, right? And it's like they'll see 5, 6, 10 of them and they kind of get like disappointed, and then they find that one that hits everything on their wish list. They're just ready to move in that day,
Yep.
But that's that excitement that, messes them up, and they
and
don't read the lease.
And then, the one side of this is the leasing agent should be telling these folks, hey, look, you should be looking at it.
Right.
And, it's a double-edged sword, right? One, you're not an attorney, so you cannot be giving legal advice, right? And if my job is to represent the landlord and not you on a landlord rep basis,
right.
Well, this is the lease, what the landlord wants.
Yep.
Most of the time, his attorney wrote it up.
Right.
And he wants to keep it the way it is, right?
Right.
So my job as represent the landlord is, well, here's his lease and contract,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And if the tenant is, call it foolish enough to say, all right, I'll just take and sign it. Well, that's kind of on you, right?
No, 100%.
And if I'm doing a tenant rep deal, helping someone lease a space, I always tell them, review the lease.
Yep.
Right? I'm giving it to you. If you have questions, I will give you an attorney that you could talk to.
Yep.
But I can't legally interpret this for you.
Right.
So you need to understand what you're signing, because this is going to be a big
deal.
Big part of what you're going to be growing here.
Right. Exactly. To kind of flip it to the other side, what would you say that today in like landlord's perspective, like what's a perfect tenant? What would you think?
Perfect tenant.
There's no such thing.
There's really no such thing. It's really personality based, right? And you can have a rock solid lease that's concrete, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, if you've got a tenant that's late on paying rent, that is, not exactly operating the way that they should be, right?
Or that they agreed to.
Or that they even agreed to, right? Because at the end of the day, as a landlord, you want to get paid on the first of the month, every month for your rent, right?
Yep.
And even in the lease that says, hey, look, as a tenant, you're responsible for this, right?
Mm-hmm.
They may not even be maintaining that system that they're supposed to be maintaining. For example, HVAC, right? So really the best thing you can do is vet your tenant financially the best you can.
Yeah.
And also kind of look at their business plan. See if they even have an idea, right? I've found that more intelligent people are easier to have conversations with because they understand things more reasonably.
Right.
But if someone's throwing something together that's half-assed, so to speak, they may not be a person that you could reasonably have a conversation with and handle whatever the issue is.
Right.
So as a perfect tenant, there really is no such thing.
Yeah.
Unless you're getting into the national tenants, right? And for them, here's the contract. Landlord's held to it on his end. The tenant's held to it on their end.
Yep.
That would be your quote unquote perfect tenant. Right. But in the real world of working with your mom and pop small business owners,
right,
you really got to try to vet them out, looking at some sort of business plan, financials, and then also having a casual conversation with them.
Right.
You can pick up a lot on someone's vibe in about 5 minutes of
100%.
just talking to them.
Exactly. That's all it takes. And sometimes, you know, you don't even have to pry. You just have a conversation. They'll tell you everything before you even ask any questions.
Oh, yes. A lot of people like to talk.
Yeah, a lot of people like to talk. They will tell you everything about themselves real fast, you know, about their business too, and ups and downs. And it's like, you know, when you hear some of those things, like, you probably shouldn't be telling me that. You know, if somebody today was to come to you and it's like, I got 500 grand to invest into something, what would you tell them and where would you put them? Would it be retail? Would it be industrial? Would it be, what direction would you, you know, put them in right now?
So I get conversations like this all the time of folks calling up saying, hey, I've got money, I want to go buy something, right? The first question I always ask is, have you owned real estate before? Whether it's residential, commercial, what, right? How versed are you in the commercial real estate world, right? And then from there, guide the conversation based on what their expectations are, right? Do you want a building that's going to be heavily managed? You know, something like office. You're going to be dealing with a lot of people, a lot of personalities, a lot of issues, right? Or are you looking for something more hands-off? You know, that's your absolute net retail buildings that are like daycare, CVS, Walgreens, the big nationals out there, right? Or are you looking for something maybe a little safer to own or operate in? Or what exactly are you looking to do, right? When you look at the dollar per square foot, right? Let's just use the Blaine market for industrial right now, right?
Sure.
Stuff around here selling between 120, 150 a foot based on the square footage, right? Rent, you're going to see it between $6 and maybe $850 a foot. Again, building dependent, size dependent, right? So if you think of that $850 a foot net number, right? $850 is your dollar per square foot on an annual basis. How many times does $850 go into 120? Quite a few times, right? So your payback there is going to be much slower and not as fast as a retail or an office building, so to speak, right? For an office building, let's, you know, you're going to be right around maybe 160, maybe 180, depending on the building. Again, building dependent, right? There's a lot of other factors with that.
Of course.
But if you are getting 15 to 20 bucks a foot net on those buildings, well, that goes into those numbers a lot faster. Right.
So basically on that side is, you know, the more involvement, the bigger the payout possibly.
Correct.
But it's going to take more out of you, and it's not just going to be a passive that, you know, I own a building somewhere here.
And it's your risk reward ratio, right?
Yes.
Industrial, usually more in demand, right? You've got people that are getting out of their shops, blue collar stuff, you know, items that may be more easy to get up through in a recession, right? For example, if you think of the things that kind of recession proof, right? Life and safety systems, lawn mowing, snow plowing. These are all stuff that needs to be done.
Regardless of.
Regardless if the economy is booming or tanking, snow needs to be done, grass needs to be cut. If not, you have issues on city ordinance side, right? Grass has to be below 4 inches, right? All that. So you've got, you know, easy little startups like that for people that need to have space, right? They're going to go into your industrial building, right? Then you go into the office side of things, right? You know, little better risk reward ratio, right? Because you've got a lot of office like uses. You've got taxes that need to be done, attorneys, CPAs. I mean, any number of different office like use, right? Then on retail, more higher risk, high reward, right? And that's where you might see more turnover. You know, these restaurants that start up, these salons where it get going, some of these uses may not be as recession proof as the other ones, right? So you might see more turnover. But also you're gonna make a higher profit and you're gonna make your money back over time, right? So again, for example, we call a retail center selling around 200 bucks a foot, right? Base rent there's 20, 25 a foot. Again, that goes into it a lot faster, right? So that's kind of where I guide and start the conversation and then direct that potential client into one of those 3 categories based on what they want to do.
Now, personally for you, if you're like, I want to just rinse and repeat this, what would you invest in?
I like industrial. And the reason I like industrial is it's easier to maintain and manage, right? You're in industrial parks that are not so high glam with landscape that needs to be updated, the grass looking like the TPC, so to speak, right?
Right. There's no association per se on what you need to do.
Exactly, right? So you've got, a little less of a image you have to keep up, right? Which again goes into costs, right?
Of course.
I like the fact that it's got more uses available that I could lease to, right? And also the maintenance on those isn't going to be as much as an office or retail. Office side of things, in most buildings, and you can walk into just about any office building in Anoka County, and I guarantee you HVAC is going to be one of the tenants' number one issues.
Yeah.
And that's because when these buildings are built and over time tenants move in, shrink, expand, they modify the interior, but the ductwork never gets changed. Which is why, the guy down the hall.
So many times.
Oh, yeah. Which is why the guy's thermostat down the hall, he cranks it and it's affecting the one down the other way.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
So there's a lot more maintenance that goes into those.
Yeah.
Right. Retail, again, you're dealing with more people on the property, sets you up for more risk liability.
Right.
Minnesota, we get snow and ice. So
all the time.
One of the biggest things you see is people slipping and falling.
One thing that's solid in our state that's coming every, 6 months is that.
Exactly.
Guaranteed.
And, unfortunately, people will walk around kind of thinking everything's all safe and fine, and they'll slip on ice, and now they fell on your property. Now you're open to some sort of lawsuit.
Yep.
So again, it goes back into how management intensive do you want to handle, right?
Talking about that and just bringing that up, this is the first question that comes to my mind. And I know you got a lot of properties that you manage. And this is a crazy question too. Did you run into any frequent flyers that are, ice slippers all of a sudden through certain properties?
There is the ice slippers, right? And then there's the drive-by ADA lawsuits that come, right?
Okay, drive-by ADA. Tell me about that.
So if you have handicap parking, which you're supposed to have, right? Per ADA law, you should have it being so far away from the door. It's got to be crosshatched. It's got to meet ADA code, right? You got to have the signs up. They got to be up so many inches.
Oh yeah.
And if you don't meet that, you will get a lawsuit where they are essentially suing you, saying that you are not keeping up with the ADA code, and you can either settle because this person, is suing you, or you can fix the issue, right?
Right.
And you'd be surprised how many times our properties will just get a random lawsuit in the mail that says, hey, your ADA sign is below 60 inches and your striping is outside.
59 and a half.
Exactly. You're not at 60 inches or whatever the code is, right? It's like, are you serious?
Wow. So having said that, this is how my crazy brain works. Is this an individual that might be, let's just say handicap and notice that? Or is this like lawyers who are just looking for...
These are lawyers partnered with people trying to get a quick and easy payday.
Partnering with people.
Yeah. Partnering with someone that is handicapped and has a good reason why they couldn't go and use a sidewalk for any reason. And if you go to Google and just type in any sort of ADA lawsuits, you'll probably see the same names and firms popping up.
Is that legal?
Well, yes.
I guess
because
right?
You are not keeping up with code, right? And I don't mean to nag on anyone.
Of course.
Right? But this is just one of those things where you see some individuals taking advantage of the system, right?
Yeah.
And I'm all about people having the right access. It should be done the right way. And I don't want anyone to take it outside of it. But you will find the bad apples out there that are taking advantage of a loophole in the system.
Right.
If you want to call it that.
Wow, that is insane. To switch gears a little bit and kind of like how we work and what we do, from your side of things, how important is it for brokers to understand the construction costs and renovations when they do get themselves into a building, a listing, or what have you?
It's very important. And again, it all goes into cash flow, right? So if we're going to do a deal and we're going to spend $30,000 on the remodel, how is that going to affect the overall cash flow? Am I getting enough rent to cover this? Am I still going to be able to pay the debt service on the building?
Right.
How is this going to affect it? So it goes into a pretty key component of operating the building on a pro forma. So again, when we look at a lease deal, and this is why I'm always calling you up saying, hey, Sinan, it looks like we're going to be doing a little lease deal over here. I need to know what's going to cost paint and carpet.
Right.
Or we want to move some walls, whatever it is. Right.
Yep.
Because we use that as part of the offer letter from the tenant or the prospect, right? That, hey, I want to come and lease the space. I want you to do this. Well, as the landlord, we're in the for-profit business. This isn't UNICEF, right?
Exactly.
So if I'm going to put money into your space, I need to know what my return is, or if there is a return, right? And, in some buildings, there might not be a return because you just need to get someone in there to get some life in the building, right? But again, that's for a landlord or an investor to make that decision, right, with the information at hand, right?
And if you're operating at that just to get some life into it, you're that desperate. Is like, how did you get yourself into this deal to begin with? And
buying a distressed property that was essentially vacant, right?
And trying to build it back up.
And you're building it back up, right? Yeah. So, the old saying, life brings life, right? Let's say you buy this 20,000 vacant retail center, right? Yeah. It went to the bank, month-to-month leases, all the tenants left, just it's sitting there distressed, right? Well, you're going to have to do work to the building and put money into it to bring life into it.
Right.
So for the first one or two tenants, you might be doing a deal
going to be losing money.
Might be just desperate. A break even, right?
Yeah.
Just to get tenants at the center.
Right.
As you put people in the building, more tenants will come.
Exactly.
Right. And now you can start doing things in a way that might make more profit for you. Right. But there is the caveat of you might have to put money into a deal and you might not see any money out of it.
Right.
Just to get life in the building.
Right. And I've seen that over and over again. And you kind of covered it on this too, as you just mentioned, is like what happens, when somebody does buy a building without understanding the costs that go into building out. Well, you just covered it, on exactly what's going to happen and what you're going to see, just to get that first tenant, and may that be small, big, or whatever it is, get somebody in there, get it rolling, see the sign. Hopefully more people, it's going to attract more people. It might be somehow, a business that's symbiotic to something else that might bring somebody else in there. And then once you get more people, obviously you're going to get more revenue and you will be able to have more funds to do what you need to do. How do commercial brokers and general contractors, since we've been working to this all the time, how do you see it that we kind of like protect each other and try to, make sure that we're, on the same page when we're in front of a client and prospect?
Really, when I get to that point of handling a lease and tenant improvement, as you and I have done before, I really kind of put you in front of the tenant to kind of figure out what it is that they want, right? And, have the prospect essentially describe what is it that you want to do here. You want to put a wall here, you want to move a wall, paint carpet's easy.
Right.
But the thing that goes into construction is if there's a sprinkled building, right? Well, we got to move sprinkler heads. We've got to move ductwork. We got to move things, right? So a lot of it is just being very open and transparent and understanding what is it that you want to do here, and getting it right the first time, because once we go to architectural drawings and pull hey, I want to change this, because now we're changing the whole flow of things.
Right.
So it's very important to let the prospect and the contractor understand what they want to have done. From there, the contractor bidding the job the way that it needs to be done, so that the agent or broker can take the scope of work and the price point and figure out a deal that makes sense. So it's very crucial to understand, one, the expectation of what needs to be done.
Right.
Two, pricing, right? What's going to cost, right? And in any project, you're opening up a can of worms. You don't know what's behind that wall. And, if the tenant did something and didn't tell you, right?
Or who did something before that, that is all covered up and you won't have a clue until you get yourself in it. Yeah.
Right. Which is why, when you work with a contractor, it's always good to have a little fluff number in there as well. We don't know what this is going to be given the situation. Right.
Right.
But from there, broker's going to take the scope of work, figure out a pro forma backwards, present it to the landlord and say, hey, I think this is the way we should do the deal. This is your ROI.
Right.
And
I really like how most of the time when we're there, you just introduce me and you're like, here you go, and then I'm looking at them, they're looking at me and I'm like, all right, well, let's start asking questions, What do you want? What is it that you would like to get out of this? And by the time we finish, they'll tell their version of what they're looking for and give me an idea of at least which way to price it, or at least budget it for them, and have some expectations of the costs that are going into it. And then, it's always that balance too, when it comes to it, just like in anything else, wants versus needs too,
Correct. Yep.
It's like, okay, well, I understand that that's really what you want, but this is the part that, is more important for your business right now. This makes you money. This doesn't.
Yep.
So we can do that later. Right.
And that's exactly why I let you handle those conversations, or why you should let the contractor handle it. Because if I'm playing the game of telephone, I'm going to relay the message that you want incorrectly, right? That's
right.
That's the nature of life, right? Which is why you try to get the middleman out of it.
Yeah.
Let the two parties that need to communicate.
And I don't think you would necessarily, do it on purpose or do it in however. I just feel like when you're there, you can kind of, there's a lot that goes in that conversation. You can read the person when they say something and how they're, expressing it, and really like almost like how important on their list some of those wants or needs or whatever it is are. And, you're putting that back in your head. We're like when it's on the phone and you're talking to them and I don't know what they're looking for, but this is what they mentioned or said, a lot is lost to be, to that translation of it per se, and not get to what really they're looking for.
And the other part, you being a contractor doing a lot of jobs, right? You've probably seen a lot of this similar stuff. Like, hey, you're saying you really want this waterfall feature. This is how much it's going to cost. Do you feel like that's a really big need?
Do you want to put
or is this
that
more
much
of
of
a
your
want
budget
for
towards
you?
it? Yeah,
right.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I feel as though a lot of prospects don't know quite what things cost.
Right. And that's one part that, again, just between us contractors too, line up 10 of us, you're going to get 10 different prices, right? But it all depends on so many factors of like, that person's experience in that field and what they're doing. If they have ability to, do they even know what they're talking about, or are they just trying to put a number on it? Most of the times when me and you are there, we got ourselves to like these roles that, I play and you play, and we don't cross into each other's sandbox per se. You do what you got to do. Here's what I think we can do minimally from what I heard them say. Here's what we can do. Here's a budget. You make it work. If it works, great. If we can make it work, even better. If we can't, well, then, move on to the next one. Right.
Yep.
No love lost. A question that I wanted to ask you personally, and I never have, but it just, now we have an opportunity per se. Was there ever a time when me and you walked the property with a client that either saved the deal or that saved the client after our walkthrough, where they were even, either too hyped up about it and were ready to jump in with both feet, and then we discovered something that either killed the deal, or was it something that we walked it and we just gave them clarity on something to go ahead and proceed it? Do you remember any of the instances? Because usually I just give you information and then I'm out.
Yep. So generally how it works, we walk through, I get the quote from you, right? And then talk with the prospect or the landlord, and we go from there, right? Yep. There have been times where it's like, yeah, no, this deal doesn't make sense. These guys are asking for way too many things, and unfortunately it's killed the deal. But again, going into it, the landlord knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I get this question as the property manager sometimes, well, why is my building not cash flowing? Well, we sunk 45 grand into this.
Right.
And that's why it's not cash flowing. Right. And that's why using your pricing, is what we build the deals off of,
Yep.
right? And then there's other times where, it has, saved the deal, so to speak, right?
Yep.
And that situation was, we were walking through a retail property and, they really vibed with you. And they were like, you know what? I want to do this deal. I want to use Sinan and let's make this happen.
Yep.
If I walked through with a different contractor, I don't know how it would have gone.
Yep.
But you know how sometimes people vibe with each other.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Exactly.
And, that deal got done. And I think a lot of it was because they liked you and trust you. And I've done work with that individual previously and, they trusted my judgment and I think it turned out well for them.
Yeah. I feel like I try to connect with people and I try to educate them as much as I can. And I try to put myself in their shoes per se, from business standpoint of like, if I was about to do this, here's what's, logical to do and would benefit your business. And here's like, all of these other things are just like not necessity at this point in order for you to make this happen. And I feel like, sometimes I have to take them from the wants to the needs more often, and be like, hey,
exactly.
After a couple of years, we can come back to this and do whatever you want and you make it your own and personalize it and do what you got to do. But let's make this happen because you only have certain dollars that you're working with. And let's stretch this dollar as much as possible towards something that makes you more dollars, not that, takes away from it.
Yeah. And again, this goes back to, some broker and contractor relationship, right? And maybe not even put the title in there, but personal relationships, right?
Yep.
I walked you through on a number of different jobs where you ended up getting them. And then the landlord was so happy with what it turned out, ends up being a good reflection on me, right? I gave a good referral. You got the deal done. The work got done the right way. Now I've built more trust and brownie points in, Mr. Landlord's eyes, so to speak, right?
Yep.
And next year, he's asked me to take his building to market.
Right.
So again, it's one of those things that...
that's such a perfect opportunity for me to just tie to what you just said there, because you brought me in to meet Gus. Just on a small thing to look at and patch and fix up at that point in time that he had, that turned into a roof, that turned into... I believe I got a text message from him this morning, right before we were going to start this, saying if I could help him out with some, I think it has to do something with HVAC and fall protection,
Yeah.
And that was all you kind of, you guys still manage that, but he now, like, outside of it, hey, can you help me out with this and that? What a lovely guy and what an amazing experience was working with him. And I hope he feels the same way, but by calling back, I'm pretty sure he does. So there's something to be said about that and building those relationships, that it's just not so transactional. You know what I mean? I'll get my quick dollar here and, walk away and not caring of what I do or what my job looks like. Which naturally brings me to another question. In your eyes, how do you, what do you see with the buildings that, what's a common thing, I guess, or common theme with the buildings that are well built and well designed and well utilized versus buildings that are just, I would say run down and not maybe the quality should have been there where it should have been from the get-go or from the start? Yeah.
So what makes a good building versus a bad building, essentially? Right. When work is done using quality contractors that aren't cutting corners, right? If a permit's supposed to be pulled, well, you should probably pull the permit, right?
Yeah.
There might be a instance here and there where you could get away with it and it's not exactly needed, right? But most of the time you're changing systems, you're moving stuff around. It requires a permit and an inspection anyway. You might as well just pay and have it done with, right?
100%.
And when we take over some buildings for management, you can see where, this contractor cut the corners and now it's costing the landlord here a lot more money.
Right.
Because now we have to, one, fix this, right? And get it back to the way it should be.
Yep.
And, it saved the guy a couple pennies, but it's going to cost this guy dollars to fix.
That's my biggest irritation when I see something like that, is like, why are you trying to save cents and waste hundreds? Because eventually that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
If it's not caught on time, if it's not caught at a right, it could be such a bigger disaster for the building owner.
Well, it's the old saying, time is money, right? So if I've got to spend more time, trying to get people to come back, fix an item that was screwed up, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's less time to be more productive on leasing it, right?
Right.
Less time to be more productive on a renewal that's going to make that person more money, right? So my recommendation would be, you know, always partner with a quality contractor and a broker, right?
Yep.
And just be on the same page. Hey, look, how much is this going to cost? Does this, even what we're doing, make sense to do, right?
Right.
If we're doing a tenant improvement, is there anything in here now that maybe should be fixed while I got a contractor in here, right? And, you know, just doing good quality work really is what it comes down to.
Yeah. To me, I feel like every time I'm in some situation that, you know, there's something that I see that could be a potential problem down the road, or even just, not that I'm trying to like upsell, you know, my services on any of these jobs. You know, it's usually when I'm doing that, it's like we have a schedule that's already full. And even if they say yes to what I'm just about to, what's going to come out of my mouth, it's going to cost me more time that I need to push other jobs off, you know?
Oh, exactly.
But like the bug in me doesn't allow it to be like, you know, just overlook that, you know? It's like, here's what you got. You should really address this because, you know, it's about to be a real huge problem for you down the road here. And if we fix it now, it's going to be better for you, cheaper for you. We're already here. Fine. I'll work with, you know, my schedule of adjusting it. But I just want you to know that this is what you're dealing with. And I try to, you know, always bring it to their attention. Or if they, or like if somebody suggests, hey, you know, what if we, you know, save some of it for later? Or what if we do, I'm like, here's what you can save forever. But these are the musts that you need to do. Let's start with that. And then, you know, we can come back to at whatever your budget, convenience, whatever it might be holding you back from that. I'd rather do it that way than, you know, just to be like, well, I have to cut a corner now on something that I'm doing. I'm like, man, my name is my reputation. I can't cut a corner. Yeah. I don't want to cut a corner. And I don't want to ever be put in that situation when somebody puts me like, you know, when I get a client and they're like, well, I could have done some cheaper or whatever. It's like, trust me, I know I'm not the cheapest guy out there, but what I'm bringing to the table is all what's the value added to it is that tomorrow or a month from now or a year from now, or whenever you call me, I'm going to answer. I'm going to come there and make sure that I take care of anything that we did and I stand behind what we do. And that's the part that, you know, it does cost a little more than, you know, a guy who's just looking for a quick fix. Or, you know, I need to make my car payment today. So, you know, that job will be perfect.
The perfect example here, right? We're doing a build out for a mental health group, right? Mm-hmm. And we're talking about figuring out how to section off the offices, right? Mm-hmm. And you brought up the idea, well, we should probably change the electrical because, you know, more than likely these gals are going to have unit heaters and it's going to be tripping breakers.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, I didn't even think of that. That's a great idea. Yes, let's put that into the bid so that we're not down here tripping breakers because, you know, ladies got the little unit heater on and now we're coming down here every other day to trip the breaker back because they want to have their little unit heater.
Right.
So it's that kind of stuff that you've pointed out and it's like, oh, well, yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
That's why I'm paying you what I'm paying you, right? Because it's saving me a headache down the road.
Yeah. And that's the thing that I try to do too is like, okay, from, you know, either the building that you guys own or that you manage, how can I solve that problem for you guys so you don't have to deal with it ever again if it's all possible? Or how can we minimize you coming back to the same spot again for this particular issue, whatever that issue is, you know, either suggest a better product, suggest a better way of installing it, or whatever we can do where it can just be, you know, you're focusing on the management of it, not just constantly maintaining thing over and over and over and over. And, you know, we're going there every couple of weeks to try to figure out what's going on with it, which there's jobs that we have, definitely. Well, to switch gears a little bit, I wanted to kind of ask you this. Is commercial real estate right now overvalued, or are people just scared, or what do you see? Kind of like the numbers are huge when it comes to, you know, like where the buildings are now and where the buildings are 10 years ago.
I mean, even if you go back 5 years, right?
Right, even 5 years, right?
Right before COVID happened.
Mm-hmm.
You know, industrial parks around here in Blaine, you're selling between maybe 70 and 80 bucks a foot, right? Now you're 120, 150 a foot, right? Size, building dependent, right?
Right.
That's an astronomical increase over that period of time. Right.
That jump, I feel like, since I've been in commercial, at least getting my feet wet in the last 15, 20 years, has never happened that fast as it is right now.
No, have not seen it happen that fast. And again, I've only been doing real estate 10 years. And when I talk to my dad and some of the other mentors at my company, they haven't seen it jump like that either. But a lot of it goes into construction costs, right? So if you remember, prices there jumped.
Oh yeah, for sure.
When prices go up, they seldom ever come back down.
I know.
Right?
God.
So then you have this whole trickle down effect, right? Well, if it costs 160 bucks a foot to build this building, right? Well, now insurance premiums are going up because if the building burns down, they got to rebuild it. They need a higher premium. So now the insurance company's putting a new value on the building at this, right?
Right.
So now everything is jumping up in value.
I love how you said trickle down, but this is more like it's
a trickle up, right?
A trickle up.
Right. So, I mean, if you're going to get prices to come down, right? I mean, that's literally convincing every person out there, you should start making cheaper products and charging less, right?
Right.
Start paying your guys less, start cutting it. That's not going to happen. Right.
Yep.
So I think right now, prices are overvalued, right? But I think you'll see them kind of drop a little bit and then kind of plateau. Because I mean, when you're looking at these buildings, call it 120 bucks a foot to buy this thing, right? Well, 160 to build new. Well, I mean, you can look at what construction was back in 2019. It was 160 bucks a foot to build, right? And prices were cheaper.
Right.
So you have that correlation. And I think for right now, you'll see prices maybe fall maybe at most 3 to 5%, but I think they're going to plateau, hold their value. And the other thing is you have the boomer generation that is now selling off their real estate, but they don't want to pay big taxes, right?
Of course.
Because if they sell it now, they're going to be paying capital gains tax. So you get a lot of folks that want to sell, but get into something better, right? Called a 1031 exchange to avoid paying taxes, right? And well, it's not avoiding taxes. You're just kicking it down the line. Right.
I was going to say, I was part of that on a residential side. So you're just kicking it down to the next property.
Correct. And you know, without someone having another property to buy, they're just sitting on their real estate until they have something, right? So it's preventing people from wanting to really sell, because if they sell and they're clearing about $1 million, well, that million is being taxed pretty heavily. What incentive do they have? So unless the IRS code changes where capital gains is going to shrink, which more than likely won't happen, right? You'll see folks probably sit on it and then either pass it down to their kids, it'll sit in a trust, or it'll sit somewhere in a protected status to essentially avoid paying taxes. And unless you get a desperate seller, someone's going through a divorce or something happens, right? And they have to sell the asset. Well, then they're selling it because they're forced to, and they know that they're going to be paying heavily on the taxes.
At that point, taxes is not their even concern.
They just need to solve whatever the issue is.
For sure. Do you feel like that the interest rate will break the small investor, or will they bring and create more opportunity?
Well, as interest rates drop, it allows money to be cheaper. You can go pay more, right? Which is why you see so many people overpaid for houses back in 2020, 2021 when rates were 2.5%, right?
When I feel like the bubbles that we were just talking about, that was a residential. Now this is a commercial one, right? Where the prices have been just increasing and going so much. That was kind of what was happening in 2008 and 9 in residential side.
Well, the one thing that's different between residential and commercial is how the loans are structured. You got the ARM and then your conventional fixed 30-year, whatever it is, right? So what we have seen is a lot of folks that refied in 21, they refied on those 5 or 7 year ARMs, just low rate mortgage. So they got a ripping good deal back then. Well, now with rates coming up, they're what, 6-7%. Now the building is not going to cash flow like it was. Because now you're factoring debt service. Yes, your rent should have gone up. But if the rents were structured at 2.5 or 3% bumps, well, you aren't going to offset as much as the interest. And at that point, you might see some investors forced to take their property to the market because now it's fallen below the income value based on the bank loan.
So that just leads me to the next question. If they are bringing it to the market, and most of those properties are the way the bank look at and structure those deals is how much is it bringing in?
Yep. Bank's going to look at, is this covering the debt service?
Exactly.
If it's not covering the debt service, then they're going to ask that owner to come up with money to the table so that it is covering the debt service. Right.
So I'm just looking at it from a standpoint of the, let's say current person in that situation, and is like, well, I'm just going to sell it. Well, your pool of selling that or buyers that you're looking for is not that deep because it's either got to be a cash deal or, interest rates are going to be same for all of us.
Well, it's going to be just like a bond, right? If I'm going to buy this bond, I know what my income on it's going to be. Right. And if you're selling this asset and this is the only income that you can get off of it and it doesn't meet debt service, well, that means you are going to have to sell it less than what you're trying to get out of it because it has to cash flow. The only way to kind of get around that, so to speak, is a contract for deed, right? However, that only works if the asset has no debt on it because you have to clear the debt with the bank because the bank's not going to fall behind in position on the loan, right? So using easy numbers, let's say you got $100,000 building, right? And you owe $50,000 on it and you're selling it for $100,000, right? You're just trying to break even. Well, you will have to clear that $50,000 in debt on it first because you owe that. It's the first position on the lien, right? And now you get your little $50,000 of the profit, right? But if you have that building free and clear, right, you could take on what's called the first position on the lien, right, and act as the bank, and now they're paying the owner money and interest just like they would the bank. So there's a couple of reasons some people would do this.
Of course.
One, kicking the taxes down the curb, right? So instead of paying your huge capital gain all at once, you break it up over time, right? And you are collecting interest.
Of course.
Right? So it's a way to kind of bridge that price point where, you want to get $120,000 for it, but it's really only worth $100,000. Well, over 5 years, you'll collect that $20,000 in interest. So we are getting you what you want. Right. And that's been a way and a strategy that we've used to get some deals done.
Really? Is that a common deal?
It's not very common because the only time it really works is when there's no debt on the asset. If there is debt on the asset, it has to be cleared at closing. And most folks would rather just sell and take it all out than get in that position of the banker.
Of course. Then this kind of all the questions that we had and everything that we kind of discussed just lends itself to this. Do you feel like that there's going to be some kind of a not to say a bubble burst in commercial real estate, but that a wave of foreclosures with, interest rates going high, a lot of those, 5-year deals are about to expire. Are you seeing it at all, or is it even happening? I wouldn't say that there is a wave of a bubble. Right. There's a lot of cash sitting on the sidelines of investors that want to buy stuff. And really, there's just no good asset for them to buy now. So a lot of these guys have just been sitting there waiting. So there's a lot of powder in the keg, so to speak. Right. So if some foreclosures do come, right, and something's going to come of it. I think those will get picked up relatively quickly. For sure. Right. And it's not going to be like 2008 where, all right, I'll go buy this, and this. Right. There is, I think, plenty of money sitting on the sidelines for people in cash or people willing to get creative on financing to go and make this happen and buy the property or the asset. Right. Now, with everything that we kind of talked about offices earlier, what are your thoughts on remote work? Is this permanent, or you think that this is just over correction for what's been kind of happening?
I think the work from home thing is very unique, right? I do think you'll see people try to get back into the office,
Mm-hmm.
but I think a lot of bigger companies are seeing the benefit that
Right.
employees want to work from home,
Right.
and those that want to come in the office, well, okay, we'll
Come
have
in
a
the
space for
office.
them to come
Yeah.
in.
Right.
But I think there's been a precedent set where companies can see that they can save money by not having so many square feet of office for
Of
everyone.
course. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And the other side of it is the labor market. I want to keep my employees happy. So if working from home a couple days a week or a month or whatever it is keeps them at the company, well, so be it. Right. I'll do that.
Right.
Just because it's tough to find quality work.
Oh my God. Tell me about it. It definitely is something that, with everything that's been happening in our state, it's just feel like it's compounding, it's hard to find anybody. This is a question that I smiled when I read it. And I think you will too. What's the biggest lie people believe about real estate investing?
That it's a quick, easy, overnight get rich scheme.
Thank you.
It is absolutely not.
I feel like in everything that I have ever invested, I just got a lot more responsibility on my table, when it comes to that.
The old saying of, you may feel overworked, but you're blessed, right? So you have all of these blessings, which is why you have these responsibilities, right? You're blessed financially to go buy some of the stuff, and now you have a responsibility, right?
Right.
But there is the big thought, and you'll probably see it on Instagram and social media that, I bought this, I'm cash flowing, I'm moving to Maui, I'm living the great life, right?
How many of those I see? Man.
You see it all the time, and I can tell you that's not true,
case.
Right? You might see someone that bought a ripping good deal, right? Mm-hmm. And now we're selling it and they're making a good chunk of money.
Right.
But that's few and far between.
Right.
Right. And real estate is a long-term play.
Yeah.
It is not a get rich overnight. And if that is what you are thinking, I would suggest you do not invest in real estate because you will be disappointed.
Yes, definitely would be disappointed. I've been investing in real estate for quite a bit, and it's not our.
Well, it's just like your duplex, right? You bought that thing. This is great. Well, shoot, the tenant left. Now I got to put another 10 grand into getting it fixed back up, right?
It's just constant.
It's a snowball, right?
Yeah, I keep reinvesting. I make a little bit of. I have a good year, then I have a bad year, then I have a good year, then I have a bad year, and then that just I mean, not to say that real estate is not a good investment. Real estate is an amazing investment, but it does take responsibility, and it does take you gotta. If you want that property value to be where the adjacent property values are, you need to put money into it all the time. And
correct. I mean, real estate's your best hedge against inflation, right? And we're not going to be able to get away from that,
right?
And again, use your duplex example, right? Mm-hmm. You bought it for 100 grand, and now you're looking to sell it for 200 grand, right?
Yeah.
But if you haven't been putting money into it, keeping up with it, any smart buyer going in is going to be like, well, your furnace is shot. Your water heater is shot. You got leaky pipes here. I got mold growing over here. I can't pay you $200,000 for it.
Right.
It needs a lot of work, right?
Yep.
So you've got to take care of the asset and keep maintaining it. Otherwise, that's that snowball effect.
Right.
It's gonna get bigger.
Oh yeah.
And now when you're trying to sell it and cash out because you sat on it for so long, you're looking at the market thinking, I can get maybe $300,000 for this. I paid $100. I'm gonna make a lot of money. Well, not so much because it is in tough shape.
As soon as somebody does an inspection and comes back with that, and you look at it and you're like, well, this does need 100, 150 invested in it just to bring it to be, where it needs to be, let alone.
Yep. And any savvy investor is going to be looking at that, 100%. Working it back on their cash flow. Well, if I'm paying 200 for it and I got to put 150 into it, I'm really at like 350,000, right?
Yep.
Now it's not cash flowing. I'd be better off just sticking my money in a bond,
a
CD, and I would make more money next year than I would right now.
Yes.
This year.
We kind of just talk about this too, but it's a crazy question and I haven't gotten there yet. But I'll ask you anyways. If someone wants financial freedom through real estate, what's the hard truth that they would need to hear?
The hard truth is it's not exactly financially free. Right. Just because you go buy something doesn't mean you're going to be financially free.
Yep.
You have continuous maintenance.
Yep.
Again, you've been blessed to be able to go buy another asset, but now you're going to have to take care of it. Otherwise,
but now
it's going to cost you more.
Exactly. But now you're blessed with all of the responsibilities that thing needs, you know. And I feel like every investment that I've ever made into real estate and that we did anything in real estate, I always want to make it better, you know, and I always want to make sure that like, I don't want to be one of those, like I hold it, run it down in the ground and then whatever it sells. No, I keep reinvesting. So,
And one of the big thoughts here on when people buy a building or buy something is, well, you know, if I put a new roof on it, it's $100,000 roof. Well, it's increased by 100,000, right? No,
that's not the case.
That's not the case. It's just like going and buying a car, right? Well, I expect it to have a battery.
Right.
If it doesn't have a good battery, why am I even getting this? It's a pretty crucial part, right?
Right. It's one of the most important parts.
So again, a lot of investors or landlords will think, well, if I put a new HVAC, put a new roof, and I paint it, it's going to be worth more. Well,
right.
No, you're just kind of putting the lipstick on the pig, right?
Right.
The asset's still essentially a pig.
Yep.
You got to actually maintain it throughout its whole life. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck with a property that's going to sit on the market, might get under contract a couple times, and then fall out because of just inspection clauses.
Yes. I've seen so many of them like that too for people, you know, they get so excited and I walk in there and I'm like, oh my God, you know, and they're like, what? I'm like, run.
You should not, don't even look at this thing.
Yeah. Like
don't even take it if they gave it to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had an instance. So it's with an individual that we both know and we worked with, and we inspected a property that kind of landed on his lap. And I looked at him and I said, if they were giving me this for free, literally nothing that they asked of me, I'd be like, I don't want this, because the amount of work that needs to be done on this and the amount of just deferred maintenance or not non-maintenance whatsoever, you know, that was done in this
the
building.
lack of maintenance,
you know, by the time you do all this, you know, you're going to be, you know, you're going to spending a good amount of money. And I mean, this was from structural to roof to windows. There wasn't a one good thing in that entire building that I would have been like, but at least it has this. No, it doesn't have anything.
There's no silver lining on this building at all.
Not even a little bit. Not even a little bit, you know? So,
well, again, that just shows why it's important to have someone come out and look at the building.
Right. 100%. And somebody that really knows what they're talking about, at least understand some of the costs that you're going to have to be, you know, spending in that to bring it to what it needs to be, you know? I also wanted to ask you about this is like, you know, it's in one sentence is like, what separates the people that build wealth through real estate versus the ones that talk about it that you see?
You know, there's the talkers, the doers, right?
Mm-hmm.
The doers will get lucky. The talkers may talk and talk and talk, and time's gone by, right?
Yep.
This all goes back to time value of money,
yep.
Right? You know, those that actually make the effort and try and figure it out along the way, they're going to be better off than the ones who just talk and talk and talk.
Yep.
They've never done anything. They have no asset that's appreciating, right? And it's not just about buying any asset. It's about buying the right asset, right? Because, you know, you'll see it and people probably know others that are like, you know, I think that guy's kind of a dummy, but he's made a lot of money, right? But because he took a risk, right? Risk reward. You've sat here and talked and analyzed it to death. You know, what's the old saying? Paralyzation by analyzation, right? Or whatever it is, right?
Yes.
Paralysis by analysis. That's it, right? And if you have that, you're never going to go anywhere, right? Versus just taking that risk. But you got to take the risk smartly,
right?
You know, it's not just, oh, I like this building, I'm going to go buy it, right? Well, you got to buy something that makes sense, and it's all about the numbers.
Yeah. 100%.
Just like when you're looking at a lease deal or a project. Well, hey, he wants us to do $50,000 in work. Well, we're only going to make $40,000 over the entire term of the lease deal. So no, we can't do this. We got to trim the fat somewhere.
Right. Exactly. There's so many people that I see that are so-called self-proclaimed, you know, real estate professionals, and hold these classes and hold these, seminars. And I'm just like, how much of this is fluff? How much is this just BS?
No, I think a lot of it's fluff. And a lot of it's just marketing to get them out there. Right.
Right.
And, there's nothing wrong with marketing, but these folks that show and claim that it's so easy, right? Well, I wouldn't say it's exactly easy. It takes work.
It does take work. It does take work.
And, yes, you have to go do it, but you also have to be smart about what you're doing.
Right.
Right. You can't just go buy something and then, think it's going to be good.
Yeah.
You have to do some research, do some homework, and at least run the numbers.
Right. You can't get into any kind of investment like this on hopium that is going to,
that's right,
work out for you, because chances are it's not.
Yeah.
It's
just
have
like
some calculated risks, for God's sake.
Exactly. And, there's a building over in Blaine that I think would be a great one to go buy, right? But if I went and bought it at $120 a foot with the bank minimum of like 25, 30% down, it's not going to cash flow.
Yeah.
It means I got to put money into the building every year just to pay the debt service.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So again, it's taking a risk, but taking a smart risk and having the right capital and the plan in place to do it, just like anything else.
Exactly. Well, Mike, I really want to thank you for your time and amazing conversation about commercial real estate that I hope a lot of people is going to open their minds before they jump into it, but at least they know where to find you if they have any questions, and you should be able to help them, and I'll be able to help them fix it, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. So, 763-486-8247.
There it is. Thank you,
Cheers,
sir. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.